General George Patton.
Hi, Ayer. You know what's more fun than killing Germans? Killing more Germans! Hey! General, we did good. We killed a whole castle of them. Some of the son of a bitches wanted to refuse, but they weren't quick enough, man. That was it.
Ladies and gentlemen, George Patton.
Welcome to my headquarters. Now, they tell me I'm going to have to watch my language, but hell, I can't remember anything I say, so if I offend you later, just come back and tell me and I'll say tough. Hey, y'all done? You haven't done the briefing?
No, we're waiting for you, sir.
You're privileged to a briefing. Everything in here is secret. If you go out and tell somebody, we're going to have to kill you. You understand? Also, now, after the briefing, because you're going to get a briefing exactly as I got it in what, September of 23rd, 1944. Or is it August 23rd?
September, sir.
Okay. And afterwards, I'm going to ask a few questions, find out what they're doing. Then you are going to be the press corps. And you are welcome to ask questions of anything that you may be interested in. Okay? And you can ask me anything. Don't try to stop me. It's possible, I guess. But if you want to know about General Patton, there's something in the movie you wondered if it was right, whatever it is. Now, we take you back to 1944, 3rd Army Headquarters.
Welcome to the War Room, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the G3. That's the Operations Officer, Major Dave Weekly. All right. I'm going to begin with our G1 and his report. G1?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Generals, earlier today I talked about our supply situations with the supplies and the fuel deprivation that we are suffering. We have authorized the construction of more internment camps for the POWs to relieve some of the overcrowding that's occurring near the front lines because we can't transport those POWs to the rear. What I'd also like to point out is that we have begun reallocation of replacements into the 20th Ward so that those units are brought back up to full strength for our forthcoming operations against Mets. So we are allocating greater priority for those units so that they are at full strength for the operation. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that we do have the latest numbers for August regarding the awards issued to the 3rd Army units. During August, we had 1 Distinguished Service Cross, 393 Silver Stars, 50 50 Soldier Medals, 890 Bronze Stars, and 51 Air Medals that were issued to members of the 3rd Army during the month of August. So that's our latest update on that. The other thing that I wish to put, and I apologize for the traffic, but the troops are returning from the battle, so I hope you can all hear me. The convoy has reached Normandy, so Brave Registry will be getting the supplies that they need so that we can properly intern our casualties here in the local cemeteries that are being established for our troops. That's my report for today, sir.
Very good.
Next we have the G2. Major O'Connor.
General, we have confirmed our estimate that there are 8 divisions of active German forces, 63,000 troops on the line, and 5 divisions in reserve of German forces. There are 175 tanks or assault guns active, and they have 150 tanks in reserve. They are determined to commence today's bombing missions from Pine Tree, Ayer Force, and Spitfire attack. We have confirmed that we destroyed the marshalling yards outside of Metz, and their communication lines are broken. We are continuing to maintain this activity. However, we do notice that the movement of troops of Germans is to the 1st Army sector and out of our sector. That's all the information I have.
All right, General. Kind of continues a little bit. Heavy fighting's continued all along the common area. Germans are determined to hold on to Metz. They're wanting to fight to the last man, and I'm quite certain that we can oblige them. I know you strong counterattacks, delayed workshop near crossing the Selle River to the south of Metz. Germans are using dug-in tanks as artillery, and they're making small counterattacks all along the line. One German counterattack against dynamite and proceeding with 300 rounds of artillery preparation. So I ordered a sound and flash base installed around the Moselle River to try to locate and annihilate that artillery position. Both dynamite workshops were hit by that artillery, and we're going to rectify this. Spitfire flew 245 sorties, 19 missions, 40 planes made especially on rail transportation, 15 rail lines were cut, 256 rail cars, 14 locomotives, 47 motor transports, 20 tanks, and armored vehicles were damaged and or destroyed. Small gains were established all along Lucky's area of operations. We did receive a shipment of 12,000 gallons of gasoline. It arrived by bomber at St. Deezer. Bombers were from Spitfire, and I've also got some of our best scroungers scrounging for more fuel. The bombers that you asked for this morning, when they delivered the fuel, I put those on that second mission that you asked for the bombardment. Also, I know you're going to be briefing again on Operation Market Garden that is going on. I kind of want to give you a little bit of statistics that I have, that I've got from my contacts in the airborne. 1st British Airborne has landed near Arnhem, and half of them have been cut off at the bridge. Colonel Frost, they're in trouble. And I'm not sure if there's anything that the Brits are going to be able to do. The 101st has landed near Eindhoven and taken their bridge. They did have one bridge blown interfaces, I believe it's Son. And the 82nd has landed near Grave and Nijmegen. There's heavy fighting around Hunter Park, and they're fighting through the cemetery, gravestone to gravestone, sir. The Germans have dug in the cemetery, and they are determined to keep us from taking that bridge, but the 82nd's going to take it out quite certain. There was a daylight crossing by the Wall River by the 501st. Daylight crossing, and they've got many casualties. We're waiting on 34 to move up, sir.
Very good.
That's about it. I don't have anything from G4. We're still waiting on information from the G4, sir. So that should take care of it.
All right. Part I want you to do, get a hold of Opie. I want air reconnaissance around Metz in the northern part of it.
Okay.
We have an understanding that there's a German unit behind it. I want to find out for sure. I want that German lane cut off or annihilated so we can surround Metz. What I intend to do is bottle them bastards up and leave them there. I don't want them in our flank. If we can't get them out in a hurry, I got places to go. Now, so I've cleared it with Ike. The next thing we're going to do is do some more heavy bombing. And that gasoline you said has arrived. I want you to find, there's one particular fort there that has some open holes. I want that gasoline poured down that open holes and lit. We'll see if we can't give some of them son of a bitches a hot foot and bring them out of there.
Gotcha, sir.
Now, that other fortification that said they were fighting to the last man, let's make damn sure they do. I don't want any survivors.
You got it, General.
All right. Now, you look at me in that tone of voice. You're at Patton's headquarters. What you heard was a briefing. The next thing that he would have done, if there was information, is that this tent would be cordoned off and peace would go around it, and he would have what was known as an ultra briefing. That's all the top secret information and the intercepts that they have around the world where they were reading the German contact and information and messages in real time. And so that was kept top secret. Ultra was kept secret for about 40 years after the war. One of the reasons it was kept secret is because we gave the German Enigma devices to our allies and our sometimes friends and told them we couldn't break the code either. And then we were able to read their codes instantly. Pretty good. That's why we kept it secret. You didn't know that, did you? All right, now, I know you have questions about General Patton, his headquarters and 3rd Army, So you're now the press corps. You have come in, you all have press passes. You can ask any question you want. I may not answer it, but you can ask it. And if it's top secret, I'll tell you. And if you're too much of a problem, you'll be escorted out and shot. So, with that, who has the first question?
I'd like to know how you feel about the British support for you in your campaign.
The British support for me in my campaign? What British support? The son of a gun, we just heard about Market Garden. They took my gasoline away. They asked me how I thought Monty would do at the last group briefing. And I said it's pretty simple. After he gets through tidying up a bit, he will sneak around like a rabbit and jump out of him and roar. But that's about all he'll do. I didn't expect him to take Con in D-Day in 10. He didn't take it in D-Day in 50. How in the hell are they going to give him a bridge and behind enemy lines and tell him to take that? Hell, if they'd have given me the gas, I'd have taken it. I'd have killed Germans with it. We'd have been halfway to Berlin by now. And you asked me about Monty? Next question. Yes, sir.
General, your men refer to you, amongst other things, as old blood and guts. I'd like to know how you feel about that.
Well, you know, that came about from a speech I gave that was kind of bloody and gutty, okay? And I've heard them say, you know, my blood, you know, their blood in my guts. Well, that's bullshit. We have the finest troops in the world, and I go and visit them every day. And you know what? They sit there and we give orders and they follow the orders. And they take ground and they kill Germans. And it ends up being the Germans' bloods and guts. I wasn't kidding those young men when I said we're going to use the tanks with their blood and their guts. And that's where my blood and guts comes from, is from the Krauts.
You're good with it.
Next.
What's your opinion on the women's role in the war?
The women's role in use of war. I have a good opinion. I'm going to tell you, back home, the finest fighters we have are the home front. We have ladies out there who are flying test pilot planes, and they're crashing, and they're getting them back in, and they're flying again. And they're flying them from the States over to England. They're testing those tanks. You've heard of Rosie the Riveter? They're making the finest equipment the world has ever seen. Then we have the Women's Auxiliary Corps. We have the Red Cross, the Donut Girls, the Clubmobile Girls. We have the Wax and the Waves. Let me tell you something. They are winning the war. We're proud of them. But we don't believe that women should be in combat. So as long as I'm general, there's not going to be any women in combat. They're too damn special.
Yeah, General, do you plan on slapping any soldiers in this theater of the war?
If I find any more goddamn cowards, no. I'm going to line them against the wall and shoot them. Yes.
You missed a German.
Do what?
You missed a German.
I missed a German? Is there a crowd in here?
He's German.
He is? That's okay. I'm going to tell you a story.
All right.
When my book comes out, there's going to be a story about a German Major General. He was a Prussian. He fought valiantly for the Third Reich. He didn't believe in Nazism. He saw what was happening. He knew about the Jews. He was captured at Marseille in 1944 in September. And he asked to be of some help. He was sent to Patton's headquarters, and he outlined the entire Siegfried line, because he helped set it up, and told him where the gun emplacements were, the machine gun emplacements, and everything about it. And he was so damn good at what he did that Patton decided to let him put it on his German Major General's uniform. German Lieutenant General is what they call it, but it's a Major General by way. And he briefed the Allies on the Siegfried line, and it was in preparation for Operation Tank. Later, he was taken to England, and he was put in a place where he was holding all the generals. And that man was being recorded, and he asked some of those vermin that were there about the atrocities, and they started admitting it, and the British recorded every damn thing. So I want you to know that just because there was Nazis in Nazi land, they weren't all Nazis. Many of them were fine men and women who were fighting for their country, and they were stuck under Hitler, which I'm pleased to tell you will soon be no more. Didn't expect that one, did you? Yes.
General, why are the pearl-handled revolvers?
Now, damn it, they're not pearl, they're ivory. Only a pimp in a New Orleans whorehouse or a tin whore would wear pearl. Ivory is lucky. I carry these ivory grips. Did I ever tell you about the time I shot 2 Mexicans under Poncho? No. Yeah, we were in the punitive expedition, and one of them was on a horse, and they came out, and I pulled my .45 and shot the horse and the man and the other guy. They was such a good kill that I put both of them on my touring cars, brought them back to Persian and dropped them off in the tent, and I kept the saddle. And I have the 2 notches on my gun. FDR one day asked me, he says, well, did it bother you to kill those 2 men? I said, hell no, but it bothered me to kill the horse. Didn't know that was coming either, did you? I've studied him all my life. Let's go with this, come on.
General.
Yes.
What do you think of our fine Russian allies?
Now, this is off the record.
Nothing's off the record.
Them sons of bitches are building all kinds of stuff. They ain't leaving. They're taking all kinds of people. They went in, they're going to go into Berlin. You watch, they're going to rape every damn one of those people. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're not going to give them quarter if I'm allowed to it. And we're going to beat them Bolshevik son of a bitches back to Moscow. Can I promise you that if we don't, we're going to have a long war with them. That's how I feel about the
General, you do know
Russians.
they're our allies, correct? They're on our side.
We're going to let them fight. We're just not going to let them finish. I get in trouble a lot by this stuff comes up. You realize that in order to file your reports as correspondence, you have to go through my PRO, and he takes all your reports, and then he sends them to Ike, and then they censor them. So I can say what the hell I want to, but they'll never get out of here. Oh.
General,
Yeah.
you should know that General Eisenhower is still president.
Is Ike
He's still president in the camp.
He's still in the camp. Well, don't tell him a thing I said. Yes, sir.
Okay. I ask you, how will you feel personal victory?
How do we feel best for victory?
You, personal, how will you feel victory?
How will I get it? Make it happen? Well, I'm going to tell you something. It's a matter of logistics. They have troops in the field. You kill as many troops in the field till they run out of them, or they surrender. I don't want you to give a shit which. We have superior forces. We have superior numbers. They have no competent head. Hitler couldn't fight his way out of anything. I mean, hell, they tried to assassinate his ass. You know, Stauffenberg got in there and tried to blow him out. Even the generals don't like him. So if he's in command, it won't take very long. He'll do another stupid thing. You don't fight a front on 2 fronts anyway. He's fighting the Russians and he's fighting us. So he hasn't got long for it. So we'll eventually win. I'm going to tell you something about the German people. The German people as a whole are good people. They just got hoodwinked by this Nazi son of a bitch. And as soon as we end Nazism and they can get back to being good Germans, that's the fight. But we can't get them to surrender. It's a matter of honor. But I'll tell you something. They may not surrender to everybody else, but they see it's no dishonor to surrender to the Third Army because they know that we're better than they are, and it's not a dishonor to surrender. We're getting thousands of them every day. Hell, if they had let me, I'd rearm them and bring them back and let them shoot the rest of them. But they won't. I was going to get back into the Russians. Man, I get in trouble with that. Next.
Sir, do you know anything about time on target and how you were bombing Rommel's troops?
Well, we had Rommel back in North Africa. Now, I understand that during the Normandy invasion that he was going to be out there and he got wounded and he brought back and then he's disappeared. I think he may have had something to do with getting rid of Hitler. So I'm not really worried about Rommel. Now, the second part of that was the time on targets. We work on it. It doesn't work well all the time, but we work on it. The problem is we don't have smart bombs. So we have to concentrate on carpet bombing. Carpet bombing and things like that, sometimes fall a little short. So we have to overshoot. By overshooting, you shoot up a lot of shit you just didn't mean to. Someday they'll have smart bombs. They'll be able to put it right through a window. But until they do, we're just going to keep blowing up all the windows. We met earlier, did we not? Didn't we meet earlier?
No, we did.
We've had a conversation already. Haven't you been paying attention? There'll be a $20 prize. It's okay. He's older than you are. Respect your elders. By the way, we do have a World War II veteran who did land at Omaha Beach. They are by far the greatest generation. When they left to go, they were 19, 20. An old man was considered 25 to 30. They gave of all their youth, many gave their lives. But those that came back, they built America. And they built it so that you could be free, so that you could worship where you wanted to worship or not worship at all. Where you could go to your school and have a pledge of allegiance and say under God. Where you could say the name of Jesus Christ and mean it and not be persecuted for it. They gave you that right. Don't you let anybody take it away. All right, back to World War II. Where the hell are we? Yes.
Yes, General, sir. What was your response to General Eisenhower's request not to liberate Palermo? Leave that for General Montgomery.
Well, most of those things I said would embarrass some of the ladies. But the other end of it was I wasn't sure Palermo could be taken by Montgomery at any time. So I went around the corner and went up and went back down and took the whole damn island and let him take a little piece of it so the British weren't embarrassed.
Sir, I do notice that you have a Bible by your bedside. Do you find time to read it, sir?
All right, you people with sensitive ears, put it up. Yes, I do. Every goddamn day. I saw the movie. Actually, to tell you the truth, I haven't found that to be accurate. I haven't actually found where he actually said that. There's a lot of stuff in the movie that's just not true. It's a wonderful fabrication of literary license gone crazy. He didn't speak with all the medals. He wore the medals once. He wore them in June of 1945 when he came back to sell bonds. He was at his home. Beatrice asked him if he'd put on the medals. There was a doctor named Pierre Johnson who had a color film picture and took the picture. When they were making the movie, they saw these color pictures and they said, oh boy, wouldn't that be nice to put Patton in all them medals and give this speech. So they put him in all the medals that he hadn't yet earned because he gave the speech in England before he earned all the medals, and then he gave a speech that he didn't really say. He never started a speech that no bastard ever won a war for his country. He never said it. He said it, but he didn't say it in the speech. And the speech was much longer and much more profane. And it was there to tell the troops that he was there to lead them. And it makes sense when you read the original speech. But it was a movie and they had to censor it and they had to cut it down. So when you see that, George C. Scott did a fantastic job of acting through the movie and the speech. And if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't know who the hell I'm going to play. Because we all saw the movie and we all liked it. It was a good movie. Hollywood did great. They just skimped a little bit on the facts. So now, there was a lady here who was supposed to ask me about my dog. She here? Okay, here's what she had it planned. All right, she was going to ask me about Willie. Okay, now y'all know about Willie. Now I'm going to correct the record. Willie was an English Bull Terrier, and in the movie he takes him to Knutsford to see the little ladies, and the little dog comes out and goes, whip, 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 and Willie cows down. He says he was going to call him William the Conqueror. He says, no, you're cowing down. I'll just call you Willie. Now, how many of you think that's a true story? How many of you would like to hear the true story? All right. Patton liked English Bull Terriers, and I own one, a real one, and his name's Willie. And they are loving dogs. you couldn't ask for a more loving, sweet dog who will protect you. In the 30s, they had actually late 20s or 30s, they had an English Bull Terrier named Tank. And if they're not bred right, they can lose their hearing, and this one couldn't hear. But he loved the dog. So when he got to England, he decided that he would like to have a companion. Now, generals don't normally chum up with their men. They have very few friends. They never know when they're going to have to boot somebody out. So he wanted a living companion, somebody that he could love and show love to, and still keep his persona. So he asked Lady Lease, who was Oliver Lease, General Oliver Lease's wife. He was a general serving in the Mediterranean, British general, and Kay Summersby, who was General Eisenhower's driver and lover. And so he asked them to find a English Bull Terrier. So they went to the local areas in the kennel, and they found an English Bull Terrier by the name of Punch. And Punch had belonged to an RAF officer who was flying night flights over Germany. One day he decided not to bring the little dog with him, and he didn't come back. So they had this little dog that he had found. And he wrote his daughter that what he was going to name him, and only she, Ruth Ellen, his youngest daughter, would have known what he was talking about. When she was 16 years old, she had a debutante party coming out at 16. He invited all the young cavalry officers to come out, and they had a dance. But he was also politically minded, so he asked some of the generals to come out and other people, and they roasted huge pigs, several of them, hogs and steers. Back then the Army was segregated, and the blacks didn't associate with the whites, and most of the cooks were black. So it was during the time when we had a hard time. We were in the recession, not many people had money, so he paid the cooks to come out and cook, and they enjoyed it, and he told them they could eat all they wanted to eat. So he's going through the camp, and he inspecting the camp, and he hears a little boy yelling, and he goes around the tree, and the little boy kind of bent over, he's on the ground. He says, "Man, I'm full, I'm little whippy, and I'm as full as a tick, and I ain't never been this full before." Now, in the book, The Button Box, by Ruth Ellen Totten, that's in there. So when Patton looked down, and he saw this little scrawny dog, he said, "I need to fatten you up, make you big as full as a tick." And he remembered. And so he named him Willie Whiffle, and Willie for short. Now, if you're making a movie, you don't want to have some little dog named Willie Whiffle and have to explain that story. So William the Conqueror fit better. And that's the truth of the story. You go to the Patton Museum, you will see his dog tags, and up above it, they say Willie Whiffle, because they've read the book too. Any more questions?
Hey, sir. Apparently, this is one of your first. One was the first installation you ever served at, sir. Tell us a little about your first position at Fort Sheridan.
First position where?
Working at Fort Sheridan, sir. One of your first duty stations.
When I went with Pershing?
No, at Fort Sheridan here, sir.
Oh, when I was doing the saber, teaching the saber?
Yes, sir.
All right, and the Olympics, you want to hear about that?
Sure, sir.
I don't want to tell them. Did you know that Patton was in the 1912 Olympics? He was in the pentathlon. He scored excellent in everything but shooting. And he was shooting a 45 revolver. It's a pretty big hole. Back then, they didn't put a target behind the target and then remove it in case you went through, because once you get a hole going, you can actually put a bullet through a hole and you won't know you went through. They said he missed. He thought he went all the way through the hole. They'll never know. But he scored, I think, 5th in the Olympics, and he represented the United States. It was where part of it is you have to jump over hurdles, you ride a horse, you shoot a gun, you do some swimming, and he did very, very well and represented the United States in the 1912 Olympics. He also became the master of the saber and designed what is known as the Patton saber, and he also designed the saddles that they went to use that were based off a French dressage saddle, and they started using them during the punitive expedition in order to see if they would work. And then after that he was assigned to tanks, where he met and was good friends with General Dwight D. Eisenhower, and they worked together with tanks. And one day they decided to take a tank completely apart down to the last nut and bolt, and then they put it back together again to see if they could make it run. Then they almost weren't. They had plenty of ammunition left over from the Great War. You know, the war, the end all wars that we weren't going to have anymore after that one. So they decided to take a 1917 water-cooled machine gun. And they heard that if you got it hot enough that the bullets would start to tumble, and they wanted to find out if that was true. So they had lined up 30-06 belted ammunition, and that water-cooled machine gun took the water out of it, and they started shooting. And the thing got hotter and hotter, and shooter and shooter, and hotter and hotter. And finally they said, well, they stopped and said, let's go down to the target. So Ike went down on one side, Pat went down on the other side, and they got to the target, and the gun was so hot, it started cooking off rounds. And they went, oh shit! They both went both directions, and they came back, and they ran back, and Patton had enough sense. He grabbed the belt, and he twisted it so it would jam. And we like to not have two commanders from World War II. Now, that tells you their friendship, okay? They were good friends. Ike one time asked that if Patton ever got a command, he would like to be his XO. So they grew up knowing each other's family. Dwight D. Eisenhower's son, who passed away, was named Icky. And Icky, when he was a little bitty boy, would go fishing with the Patton girls, and they would go out to a little creek and catch little fish. And so they would bring it back to Beatrice, Patton's wife, and she would get some tuna fish and make out like that they made real fish. And he caught a fish one time, and Beatrice made it out like she cooked the fish, put it in a sandwich, and he got to eat the fish he caught. Now this is Ike's son who passed away as a child. So that's the kind of relationship that Eisenhower and Patton had. That changed a little bit during World War II, and it kind of came to an end at the end of when he was taken off. Eisenhower got the idea he was going to run for president, and Patton became, with his mouth, a little bit more that he could associate with, and he was really afraid that Patton really would go after the Russians. But Patton obeyed orders. There's not one incident ever that he actually disobeyed an order. He might have stretched one or two, but he didn't actually disobey. When he was told not to do something, he didn't do it. Now, he might protest it, but once the issue was settled, it was settled. And he was a soldier's soldier. He was the finest combat soldier we have ever had, general commanding. He was able to move quickly in places that no one else had ever moved quickly. From September 1st to September 9th, he broke through the Operation Cobra. He went to the north, the south, and toward Germany, and he liberated France just about in less than a week. Montgomery was still stuck at Caen, and Bradley had an army in place. And he created the Falaise Pocket, which he was not allowed to close, and 110 to 150,000 Germans went through there, and he had to fight a lot of them again at the Battle of the Bulge. Had he been allowed to close that, there would have been a whole army he didn't have to fight later. He believed in quick fighting, keep going, and keep killing the enemy. And had he been allowed to do that, his nephew, Frederick Ayer Jr., asked General Bradley in the early 1960s, he said, if Uncle Georgie had been given the chance, could he have gone all the way to Germany in September of 1944? And Bradley, in one of those unforgiving moments of not thinking, says, you know, I believe he could have. Think about that a minute. There would be 10 million lives that wouldn't have been lost had he been able to go. Again, his gas was taken away and he had to stop. When the gasoline was taken away and he had to stop, the momentum of the army stopped, and the Germans could now regroup, and they became a very formidable force in front of it. Before they could regroup, they were able to go and keep going. Only no one knows what would have happened, but we do know what did happen. Now, Patton's diary, when it was written, was private. He wrote a book called War as I Knew It, but it's excerpted, because Beatrice knew that if everything that he had said got out to the public, her two daughters and sons would have problems. Her two daughters were married to career military men. Both of them made 4-star general. Her son made major general. They too, it's a history of a family that keeps on giving. Had the original diaries came out, Eisenhower's career would have been flopped off. Montgomery's career, well, it was already. But it would have not have been good. There was all kinds of things that would have come out. So she kept that diary private. After the movie in 1970, Martin Blumenson, one of the renowned historians, started going into the Patton papers, and they let him have access, and he wrote the Patton papers, volume 1 and 2, that covered the diary and covered a lot of stuff, but even it's didactic. The original diary exists in the Library of Commerce, and it hasn't been messed with. That I have used for the foundation of my book, and it's public domain. So I want you to know that what really happened is out there, and it's coming. And when we tell the truth about history, it kind of just goes on and corrects the record. Question anything you read and everything that it's said, and look up history for yourself. Read it and learn it. Find out what it's about. He would tell you, and I'll tell you, when a politician's mouth is moving, it probably needs to be put under a microscope and listened to over and over again, because it's probably lying. And that's a shame, but it was the same in Patton's time as it is today. There are some good ones and there are some bad ones. But they fought for your right to go vote on whoever you want. And if you like them, to keep them in office. And if you don't like them, get rid of them. We still have the finest system in the world, even though it might be a little bit broke at the moment. Now, be sure and thank your veterans, every one of them. And I would ask you, and I know if the real Patton was here, he would tell you this. We have an all-volunteer service today. They said, we want to serve our country. And they did. And we have a group of wounded warriors now who've come back, many of them with limbs missing, some of them with all their limbs missing. Make sure that they're taken care of for the rest of their lives by your donations, because they saw and they went for you. Now, if I've said anything that offended you, you probably have heard the real Patton. Thank you.
General Patton, one moment. Now, you've heard General Patton with his Texas accent. Now he's going to tell you what the real Patton sounded like. It's not like George C. Scott. The real Patton had a high-pitched, squeaky voice. And it is historically correct, and it would be wrong for you not to hear, and he does, an excellent imitation of what the real Patton sounded like. Have you got the vocal for it?
I'll work on it. All right.
Okay, good man.
In case I mess this up, and I might, go to YouTube and listen to the real man when he's giving his speech in California when he's selling war bonds. That is a partial of it. But he came up and he walked up the stairs, and General Doolittle was there. The station, he was selling war bonds, and the stadium was full. The war was over, but the war in Japan was still going on. And they wanted Patton to say a few words, and they were a little bit nervous. So he said he'd keep his language to a minimum, and he stood up and he says, I want to thank you, men and women, for allowing me to talk today. He says, I have just come from Germany. Looking down the 4 hours it took to go across Europe, I looked down and you have not seen hell from the top until you flew over Germany and you've seen where the 19th Air Tactical Command and the 8th Air Force and 3rd Army had worked on. I want you to know it's hell from the top. I went over bridges and towns and places I cannot pronounce, but places we have removed to get here. And I wish I could tell you what we did in the ocean, but you can look down and you can't see it in the ocean. But our Navy sunk most of what was there to the bottom. Now, a lot of talk has been talked about dead heroes. Well, goddamn it, we have a lot of live heroes too. We need to recognize them. Now, you're here because we've asked you to be here to sell bonds. So I want you to go out and purchase some bonds. Now, that was the real Patton. I'm a little hoarse. You can imagine if they had put George C. Scott up with a voice like that. I want you to remember that no bastard ever won a war for it. It just wouldn't have happened. So, I do history all the time. Learn history, teach these kids history, all the history that they can learn. That is our key to the future. We have the finest everything that any other country want. They're still breaking down our doors and coming in every direction to be in America because it's far better than what they have. So let's learn some history, and when those politicians get up and they got it wrong, correct them. This is Dave Davis. He served our country. He was in tanks. He was a sergeant, command sergeant major for
2nd Battalion, 8th Cavalry.
2nd Battalion, 8th Cavalry.
1st Cavalry Division.
1st Cavalry Division.
1st L4.
What?
1st L4.
1st L4. He was into Desert Storm.
Desert Storm, yeah.
He wasn't far from...
I went in service in '67, Vietnam period. Did that tour there. Several tours in Europe, tours in Korea. But the most fun I've had is the last 2 days here. To be honest with you, I'm here because of him. Okay? He told me, he says, you look a lot like Eisenhower. He took a picture of Eisenhower. He superimposed my face over when he photoshopped it. He says, you're the man. He sold the idea to my wife. And I have been Eisenhower. This is my 2nd day as Eisenhower.
There'll be a competition between the two of us. I'm going to quit because my voice is going, but I'll be around if you want pictures or if you want to ask more questions.